Hello and welcome to another presentation from In the Money Media. I'm Mikee P, Mike Probosi, and we have our JRA crew with us here for a Japanese Derby roundtable and a huge day for JRA this upcoming weekend. And it's the Japanese Derby. Everybody gets excited for the Kentucky Derby. Well, over in Japan, they get excited for the Japanese Derby. So we can't just have a little JRA segment this week for the Players Podcast. We need a full-blown roundtable. And we have our usual suspects, the JRA experts. Of course, Klaus Ebner is here hanging out up at Woodbine, but all things JRA go through him. So, Klaus, welcome back.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate being here.
And, of course, Alex Henry is back. Alex, I don't know that anybody in the United States, anyway, watches more Japanese racing than you. And it's always good to get your opinions, especially for the big days.
What gave it away? Was it the plushies or the winning post games in the background, the PS2 games up there? Anyway, but just happy to be here. It's going to be a fantastic weekend of JRA racing.
The massive Pick 5 tickets posted on Twitter, the near misses, just the list goes on and on. Of course, we have someone a little closer to the action here. Toshi is back. Toshi Onikubo is back. He's over in the Far East covering JRA racing, and he's certainly a JRA expert that we love to hear from. Toshi, welcome back.
Thanks, Mike. Pleasure to join Klaus and Alex. And 4 weeks after your Derby, finally Derby Day in Japan coming on Sunday.
Almost as big a field in this Derby as the Kentucky Derby. 18 horses will go to post. That's a pretty typical day for a big Grade 1 in Japan and for the JRA. For Kentucky, for the U.S., though, that big field is very, very rare. That will be the biggest field that we see here over here for the Kentucky Derby. But Japanese Derby, 18 entrants, and the top 5 finishers from this year's Japanese 2000 Guineas will return in here. And I wanted to show the replay of that race because it is certainly a key prep with the top 5 finishers. So I want to go to this replay because it can give us some insight here on a lot of these horses that are returning. And so let's go to that.
They're off and away, and the crowd roar, and it's a pretty good start by all the runners. Magic Sands, the widest of all, Faust Rasen as well. But over on the far side, it's Juta that leads out. Juta with Pico-chan Black. And then with Pico-chan Black, GT Adamant, as they pass the winning post the first time. Quadranor is into a lovely handy position in about 4th at the moment on the outside. Dragon Boost, Nishino Agent comes next with Giovanni. And then comes Museum Mile under Joe Moreira going forward. Then is Dragon Boost, Eddie King, Satano Shining, Masquerade Ball is next. Then in behind Calamatianos comes next. Then Fukano Blue Lake, Vincentio, DMM Dream Club colours on King's Score. Faust Rasen now circling the field as he's done before. The last of all, Magic Sands and Aloy as they head down the back straight now, and it's Pico-chan Black that's taken over. Pico-chan Black it is, and Faust Rasen the one that's circling the field again as they head down the back straight. They've got about 900 meters left to race now as they come back into view. Faust Rasen it is from Aloy Ali that's gone up into second place. Pico-chan Black there as well as they head up at the top end now, and then comes Juta with GT Adamant, Dragon Boost, then Quadranor asked to get closer now, but looks to have no trouble at all. Satano Shiny is next, then comes Nishino Agent, Museum Mile, and then comes Eddie King. Giovanni Vincentio is well back with Calamatianos, Magic Sands, and well back is Dragon Boost and King's Scroll as the 18 Colts now turn for home in the Satsuki show, and Faust Rasen still has it from Juta, but here's Quadranor, and what an exciting prospect this horse is, but he's got a bit of company here with Museum Mile and Satano Shiny, and Museum Mile goes up to Quadranor and takes it over now under Joe Moreira. Museum Mile wins it from Quadranor, Masquerade Ball, then came Satano Shining, Giovanni.
So that was quite the race there in the Japanese 2000 Guineas. They went a mile and a quarter in that race. And Klaus, I want to go to you here to start with. And the horse that ultimately finished second, Quadranor, was a huge favorite for that race, but was overcome by Museum Mile. And really, Museum Mile was quite impressive there, overcoming the favorites. He doesn't look like the distance they will stretch out here in this race should give him any trouble. Can the horse that was favored in that race come back and maybe improve, or do you think that maybe Museum Mile can, go and get this Japanese Derby?
I'm not saying that Museum Mile can win the Japanese Derby. I just think that that this is the second start off the bench for Qualinor. He's going to be primed and ready to go, I think, in here. Did he put in a effort we weren't really expecting in the Satsuki show? Yes, I do think that it was kind of below his par. But again, he's going to improve off that effort. I think a lot of the fact that Museum Mile won that race had a lot to do with João Moreira being in the saddle that day. He's not disrespecting Museum Mile at all, but just, again, he had a perfect, beautiful ride that day and closed to beat some good horses that day. So, again, I think Qualinor is primed to bounce back to his prime effort in here. Again, if he's good enough, I do think he's good enough. He's by Kitasan Black, and they seem to improve with age. So, yeah, I think he's the real deal, and we'll see the real one on the weekend.
Toshi, jump in here and give your opinion of that Japanese 2000 Guineas. And of course, give your opinion of that, not only the top two, but if you had something in behind that maybe you saw something there that might lead to some success as these horses stretch out. Give a little thoughts on that Japanese 2000 Guinea.
Yeah, of course, Kraus covered the most, I'd say. And, as he said, Museum Mile, everything suited him. Great ride by João Moreira, and perhaps the favorite Cordinal hit the front too soon. The pace was pretty fast. Yeah, I mean, we don't know who's the best horses, and probably people are presuming Cordinal is the best, and also he's a second time out in this spring campaign. So a lot expected for Cordinal. I mean, it's only predicted phase, but if Museum Mile is more than like 5.0, yeah, I think it's variable. I don't think those two are that different. But yeah, Cordinal will be favorite. But I think Museum Mile will be a little bit shorter than this prediction. And other than those two favorite, of course, we need to mention unbeaten Group 3 winner. Didn't run in the Guineas. Fandom. That'll be Joe well in Soul 6. Joe is crucial in the Derby because there's a, fast bend is pretty early stage of the race, and not long enough to coming from outside, and those outside row is a big ask. It will be. And, the Guineas third, impressive finish very strongly. And those things will be, supported in the market, usually the Derby, because Satsuki Show is a bit shorter home stretch as an opposed to long, fair, big, wide course in Tokyo. So Masquerade Ball would be supported by the fund, and currently he's a third choice. But, yeah, drawn outside. And I think that the Satsuki Show pace was helped him as well, and then other horses, quite a few horses drawn wide. So I would like to go, inside draw, like number 2 Shohei, beaten many times, but the impressive win in the Kyoto Shimbunhai, and also his second last start, Kisaragi Show form, is actually great. Horse won it, Saturn Shining finished fourth in the Satsuki Show, and then fifth in Satsuki Show, and then Link Stip, who is the Guineas third in the Phillies Triple Tiara. So I think that form is very strong. And the other horse I need to mention would be Eric King, number 3, maybe Readiness, number 5 as well. But I think Eric King, Shohei, and those two horses, second time out in this spring campaign. Both got Christophe Romeo and then Yuga Kawada on Eric King, respectively. So that those two would be interesting for me.
Alex, jump in here. Of course, I want your thoughts on that the replay that we saw there. You looking at the top of the market here, do you think things will change? I know that Toshi thinks that some of the others have a better chance to win this race, and certainly I would think that those two will probably be at the top of the market here as far as price go, but we know with these 18 horse races that there's certainly value to be had other places.
Absolutely, absolutely. So for the record, I love Crowder Nord. I think that he's second time off the layoff, as Klaus and Toshi mentioned. I think he's going to be tough. I do seeing that replay again, fresh today. I do think that he did hit the front too early and just got a little tired late. I think the pace was a little bit more forward than they thought it would be, and he sat pretty close there, if I'm not mistaken. He was pretty close to it. He never was further back than like fourth, I believe. So I think with a little bit more management, they're going to go a little slower. Obviously, the 2,400 meters, I think he'll be really formidable. Obviously, pedigree outstanding, Cape Cross on the bottom, tons of great dams, stamina and speed underneath. So I don't think he'll have any problem seeing out the distance. Going back to Museum Miles, when I wanted to just pick on something a little bit. So this 2025 Satsuki show, he earned a 117 at Keiba figure, pace figure, speed figure. As we've talked about this before during Breeders' Cup time, these pace figures it can't really equate them to a buyer or a time form, but, charting them over time, several horses, in your repertoire, you kind of get a sense of what's fast. And so he earned a 117 net Keiba speed figure for that victory. That's pretty darn fast. I look back the last couple of years, I saw 107 and 110. So that was the fastest in the last handful of years. So definitely Museum Mile and Crotonord, excuse my French, literally, are definitely two horses to be respected at the top of the market. Looking further down, I also had Airy King pegged, and he's sitting at 27.9 decimal odds, ninth favorite out of the field of 18, which is super exciting for me because I know mentioning him will probably make his odds go down, but rather help our listeners win money and viewers win money. And here's some reasons why I really like Airy King. And this replay again cemented it. So on that first turn, he ran into a lot of trouble. He was pinballed, he got shoved around, and Connections actually said after the race he lost all chance after that first turn, never was into it, just completely disengaged, and finished at 11th place. And he was pretty respected at Satsuki Show Day. He was fifth favorite, and that was coming off of 3 consecutive very impressive victories as a very heavy favorite. He had no problem handling this route of ground. He's actually never been less than 1,800 meters, or about 9 furlongs. So try to find that in the U.S., what of course would be the equivalent on the state side. But he wants the distance all day. He's a Kazuna Deep Impact grandsire. Got High Chaparral on the dam side. He's out of a High Chaparral mare. So I think he wants to run all day, and he's going to be at an awesome price. And just, again, vintage connections too. Just absolutely love everything about this colt. And if you're wondering why he took so much time off, I did a little bit of digging. He actually had a fracture in his right front. I'm not sure what the translation. I didn't take medical Japanese, let alone equine medical Japanese, but it looks like perhaps a right ankle or a sesamoid, perhaps. Toshi, please check me if I'm wrong. But he needed about 3 months off. That was announced December 12th of last year, after that last victory in November, perhaps sustained during training. And so he needed that 3 months off. So the Satsuki show was really a test to see how he would fare in these big fields on the big stage. So they really took a swing with, a formerly injured horse. So I strongly believe, at least in your trifectas, exactas, you got to have Airy King, and I'm really high on him.
Alex, I want to stick with you here a little bit. And you mentioned some of the net Keiba speed figures. You mentioned the big figure from Museum Mile there. He was very visually impressive in that race. Now he gets a new jockey here, but how does some of the other stack up speed figure wise? Do you think that this horse may be sitting on a bounce now? Do you look at those figures the same way as you normally would, say, the American figures? How do you use those figures? Do you use them the same way you would with U.S. racing, or do you have a different sort of philosophy?
That's a great question. So I'm noticing it kind of like it really leans more towards like a time form, wherein a higher class of race typically equals a higher net Keiba speed figure. So I look at it with a grain of salt. So for example, a horse I also like that Toshi mentioned called Fandom. He's, as Toshi mentioned, unbeaten in 3 starts. Most recently won the Mainichi High that's over 1,800 meters. So he only got a 99 there. But if you take a look at like the ground index was -15. So, that could, it's kind of difficult because I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the negative ground advantage typically means a more difficult or like a non like favorable setup, and then the positive index typically means a more positive setup. So the horses with so it was a negative 25 on Satsuki show day. I'll say that the ground was good. It rained that day. So negative 25 is almost as negative as you can get on Netkeba. So that 117 speed figure was probably aided by the more difficult ground. So that actually makes me kind of think a little bit on Fandom's, his 99 on a negative 15 ground index kind of makes me think, well, maybe it wasn't as fast as I would hope he would run, but there's tons of upside there. So I would definitely say horses that have at least run a 94, 95 and higher are my top looks. And anyone who's kind of run lower than that, I probably would either just put a saver, $2 wager, or overlook, in my opinion.
Klaus, are you tied into the speed figures and these ground figures? I know Alex is, she nerds out on a lot of different things here for JRA. But is this something when you're doing your handicapping that you're interested in and you certainly check? I mean, I know we can get the past performances, on the Japanese racing website. That is certainly useful, but Alex is going even, I think, a lot further with her handicapping.
A lot further for sure. So yeah, for me, just again, I've always been a connection person when I watch the Japanese racing, and certainly the long shots pop up. But for me, I just try to go by connections that I'm familiar with, that I feel know what they're doing, have a somewhat reasonable strike rate in terms of racing. So if I see a trainer that's in the high teens, even in the 20 percentile, which is tough in Japan to be a winning trainer in the 20 percentile. But again, that's what I look at. So just rider and trainer combinations that I know are successful and ones I can at least put more faith into. So that's really where my strength goes as well. And then the pedigree side as well. I love the pedigree side. So just trying to take some analysis in terms of who I think can get certain distances or different surfaces when I handicap JRA races. But again, I'm also pretty biased too. So, I have my certain sires like Epiphania, who bred the guy behind me. And then, the kind of, breeding that I'm very familiar with is the stuff that I'll kind of lean on as well in terms of stuff that I think is going to be successful on the day.
Yeah, and with these big fields, there's going to be a lot of trouble trips in a lot of these races. So I mean, that's another thing that you can dive into is some of these replays, or watching these races live. You can certainly gain information and bet horses back off that. And with those huge fields, there's always going to be trouble in a lot of these races. So that's another factor I think that you can tie into a lot of these JRA races. Toshi, I want to go back to you as far as your handicapping style for these races a little bit. I know that you're tied in certainly, more than most. And you spoke about speed figures before. You're certainly heavy involved in that. Are you looking more trips, more connections? Where do you find yourself going whenever you're handicapping these big JRA races?
I mean, bit of everything. Not too much into those figures, to be honest. If I'm analyzing a race, but if I'm analyzing the horse potential, I use the speed figure as well. But this is, the pinnacle of the racing in Japan. So I would go for the pure form. And their ability, as long as I can see. Then, jockeys are important, of course, because that, owners and then quite huge, major breeding and owners, they have autonomy to decide the best jockey to put on. So that is the one thing. And the draw and pace. I think that's nearly everything. But particularly for the Derby, I think the draw is a big factor to select a horse.
Well, Tom, like PTF says, the rubber meets the road. Klaus, where are you going in this Japanese Derby? I know the picks will be up on inthemoneypodcast.com. I'm sure Alex will be offering plenty of wagering ideas. I know you sometimes do also as far as on Twitter and on social media. But Japanese Derby, huge JRA day. Where are you going in the big race?
I'm going for one of the new shooters. Going with Shohei in this race. I just think that interesting to see that Yuga Kawada picked Eri King, who's right next door to him in stall number 3, but he drew well. To Toshi's point, I didn't want any horse that was going to be in the car park. I think Sohei drew well in this race. Drew the 2-hole, has Christophe Lemaire, has the trainer who won the Japanese Oaks last weekend. He stalked the pace last time out in the Kyoto Shimbun High, came home very quickly for a horse that was stalking the pace in that race. So again, for me, it's going to be Shohei, and I'll have a little sprinkling of fandom, so I'll have a Saturnalia Exacta on the weekend.
Toshi, I know you mentioned several horses in your analysis, and you're sticking to inside post. You going with Klaus also? You gonna put Shohei on top?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, Shohei, Eri King, those 2 horses would be nice one for each way. But I mean, we win that need to be the Museum Mile or Croginol, and yeah, I would stick with the odds. If Museum Mile is anything more than 5.0, yeah, I'd go for Museum Mile. But if it's shorter, should be Croginol, I think.
Alex, your pick here. I know you like to give prices too, so if you want to throw that in, feel free.
I'll give you a chalk and a price. Also, Crowd Nord, I think he can overcome the more outside draw. I think he really is special. And I believe it's Adrian Weber, right, Weber, who calls the races on the English feed. And you could hear the excitement in his voice when he struck the front in the Satsuki show and then just got nailed by Museum Mile. So I'm going to hold out some hope that Crowd Nord can show us something special from the 13 post. And then I'll also plug Eri King, who's just too juicy of a price, almost 27.9. Like, come on. When do you get a top pick from several people on this pod that's that much of a price? And definitely throw some on fandom, definitely throw some on Shohei too. I love everyone's picks. Great choices, guys.
That's going to be quite the race. Everyone seems to think that Crown is special, but I think that Museum Mile made him look a little ordinary in that race. So I probably would go back to him. I know he doesn't have the Magic Man on his back, but pretty nice substitute with Mr. Lane in the irons there. So I think that maybe if the distance is suiting, that he can double up, and I'm very interested to see what his price. And Toshi, I know you mentioned a couple other horses that you liked on the card. We are looking to get into these 20-cent pick fives and a lot of these multi-race wagers. So give us a couple spot plays and we'll get out of here.
I mean, straight after the race, that's usually for a redemption for the loser of the Derby, Meguro and Group 2. We don't really have multiple graded stakes race on the same day in the JRA circuit, and this is only one really. So that's very interesting race to watch. It's handicap race over 2,500. And this year, but the favorite will be Admire Terra. He's 4 years old. He finished third in the Japanese Centrasia. Look at that Japanese Centrasia's form. Of course, winner Urban Sick, but Hedental, Shonan Rapunta, Byzantine Dream, those 3 finished in fast 3 in the Tenno Show this spring, the long distance Group 1 in Japan, over 2 miles. And then you can find the famous name Danon Desile, who finished in 6. Perhaps it was too long or he was a bit green in that race. And then, Admire Terra was third in that race. So this horse would be, a lot to, expect in the future. So that's definitely one I'd like to mention. And then the other race in the race 8, that's another Tokubetsu race. However, the son of Yoshida, 4 years old, lightly raced the horse called Joel Wilder. He finished in third in the Alba Show with John Moreira, and Moreira said he can be competitive in the Derby, but he got set back, couldn't run the Derby, long break, about a 1 year layoff, and then a few weeks ago, actually it was a Kentucky Derby weekend, he won the race coming back easily, and this is a 2-win class. he's a graded stakes horse. So, and Damian Rain this time around, I mean, he'll be very short, but he's one to watch. And Yoshida, he's imported in Japan now, and his fast crop is should be foals born. So that'll be very interesting as well.
So plenty of good ideas here on this podcast for the Japanese Derby, and that's this weekend. So jump into JRA, jump into Tokyo for all the multi-leg wagers. Plenty of good opportunities. Go to inmoneypodcast.com website, get picks from all these individuals. Certainly check out Alex and Klaus on Twitter for their ticket ideas. I'm sure that they'll be offering plenty of value. They usually do. They'll give you a chance. So peek at their tickets and add some horses to your multi-legs. We appreciate everybody for coming. This has been a production of In the Money Media. Thank you, Klaus. Thank you, Toshi. Thank you, Alex. Enjoy the Japanese Derby. We'll see you all next time.